Namaste and hello, this is your Sanskrit instructor welcoming you back into lesson 10, where we will be focusing on the Anuswara. If we can remember from lesson number 1, the Anuswara is the name of the dot above the letter Ang that was introduced to you. So if you remember this letter on the top here, this little dot up here on the top is the Anuswara. Let us recall that the letter Ang is considered to be a vowel in Hindi, but is not considered to be a vowel in Sanskrit. However, the use of this dot, the use of this Anuswara is very important in Sanskrit, which is why this entire video is dedicated to understanding how this dot, in other words, how this Anuswara is used. Now notice that if we take away the dot from this letter here, if we take away the dot, it's no longer Ang, but it is now A. In the same way, we can put this dot above other consonants and get different types of sounds. So let us take a look at the rules as to what sounds this dot can provide. And it could be quite confusing. So let's take a look at the definition of an anuswar. So an anuswar is a dot above a vowel that can stand for, and I have it highlighted in the orange, they can stand for either two things. Either a final ma or any of the 5 nasals followed by one of the first 4 mutes of its own class. We're going to go over each of these ways using examples. So, the first way, a dot above a vowel can stand for a final ma. Now, the example here is gum, and then instead of putting this ma with the halant, this is a final ma. Instead of putting this ma, we can remove that and then replace that for a dot on the top. And that dot is the anuswar. So this over here that I'm highlighting right now, this says gum, and this also says gum. But let's take a look. It says it's a dot above a vowel. Now, where is the vowel here? If you guys can remember in the last video when we were going over halants, gum is actually a combination of k sound, the k syllable, a, and k and a is actually giving you ka. So if we were actually going to put a dot above here, that's why it would still say gum. So technically, that dot is above the vowel. The dot is above the that belongs to the ka in the half ka plus the if that makes sense. So it is technically above a vowel. So you have come and come. Now there is a rule as to when it is okay for us to write out the ma with the halant and when it is called for us to write out our final ma with the dot on the top with using the anuswar. And I'm going to show that to you in the second example. So I know I didn't teach you guys how to write sentences yet, which is why I chose a very simple sentence. And the translation for the sentence is I go to the forest. So this is how you say I go to the forest. So I go to the forest is Vanam Gachami. Vanam Gachami. In Vanam, again, we're seeing the final ma in that word, in the vocabulary word Vanam. And Vanam means forest. Now, because this word is in the beginning of the sentence, a word that is in the beginning of a sentence or in the middle of the sentence, that is when you're going to want to take this ma with the halant and turn that into an anuswar. So this is actually the correct way of saying vanam gachami. Now, remember, you could switch the words around and it could still mean the same exact thing. That is the beauty of Sanskrit. So instead of saying vanam gachami, in the third example, I could actually say gachami vanam, and it would still mean the same exact thing, that I go to the forest. But take a look. In this sentence, the ma with the halant is not turned into an anuswar because it is at the end of a sentence. So when the final ma of a word is at the end of the sentence, you do not turn it into an anuswar. You do not turn that final ma into a dot. You would only turn it into a dot when it is in the middle of the sentence or in the beginning of a sentence. Now, for the next reason for using an anuswar. So a dot above a vowel can stand for any of the 5 nasals followed by one of the first 4 mutes of its own class. What class are we talking about? Now we're going to see the importance as to why we have to remember the consonants in this type of order. The gutturals, the palatals, the cerebrals, the dentals, and the labials, these are the classes that this rule is talking about. So any of the 5 nasals followed by one of the first 4 mutes of its own class. What is the first 4 mutes? Now here's the mutes, and these are all the columns under the mutes. The first 4 mutes are the hard non-aspirate consonants, the hard aspirate consonants, the soft non-aspirate consonants, and the soft aspirate consonants. These are the first 4 mutes. If they do not belong to the first 4 mutes, then that means that they do not take the soft nasal, and they would just take the form of a ma. Now, let's give an example here. So we have the word Ganga. Now, why am I saying that this is Ganga and it's not Ganga? Or why is it not Gumga? Okay? All of these nasals, nga, nya, na, na, ma. How do you know which one of the nasals it is? So, you have a dot above the ga. It says any of the 5 nasals followed by one of the first 4 mutes. So this is followed by one of the first 4 mutes. Ga. Ga is one of the first 4 mutes. Let's take a look at which class it belongs to. Ga belongs to the gutturals class. So since ga belongs to the gutturals class, if we take a look at nga, okay, nga belongs to the same class, to the gutturals as just has, to the same class as ga. So because of that, this dot in the top here represents a half nga. And that's why it's ganga. Okay? I'm going to move on to Sanskrit later. For pampa, okay? For pan, it's actually pampa and it's not panpa. Why? For the same reason. Pa. Pa is a letter that is following the anuswar. So pa belongs to the labials. See, pa is right over here. This is pa. So pa, since it's following the labials, we have to take a look at which soft nasal belongs to the labials. And that soft nasal is ma. So that's why this dot represents the ma. It's pampa and it's not panpa, or it's not even pangpa. In the next video, I am going to talk about the debate as to whether it is Sanskrit or if it's actually Sanskrit. I'll see you then.